I guess I don't get sick and tired of seeing that introduction. I love it. Again, there have been some young folk who have told me I need to shorten that thing, but I like it. I like it. And according to most of you who have been watching, joining us here at the Fryar Place, you like it too. So I'm going to leave it the way it is. The length of it, it's only like the whole thing from the countdown all the way until the time you see my face and you hear my voice. All of that's like a minute and a half. So it's 45 seconds of the countdown, then it's 45 seconds with the actual me dancing and all of that crazy stuff in the front, in the background. But I'm going to leave it the way it is. Welcome to the Fryar Place. I'm Irving Fryar, and this is the Fryar Place, where the conversations are fire. We're going to talk a little bit today, part 2 of my prison experience. See a couple of you who have logged in, who have joined in. Actually, it says 4, but I only see 2 people who have actually identified themselves. One is Vinny Capriati. Welcome, Vinny. God bless you, my brother. I'm going to put this over here so we can see it there. All right. Thanks for being with us today. My sister Hope, she's biased. So she says she loves the introduction. Thank you, Hope. I love you too. Vinny says it's corny, but it's cool. So it's a corny cool, huh? Sometimes corny is cool. Sometimes you have to be corny to be cool. And people, for whatever reason, people think that, and this is crazy. People think that I'm real stoic and stiff and serious all the time, and they can't approach me. I'm non-approachable. Let me get that out of my nose. Okay, I say hair. I'm human. Amen. Excuse me. Let me duck down and get that out of my nose. Can't have that in my nose the whole time. That must be a hair. What is that? I'll get y'all looking at that the whole time doing the podcast. But yeah, that's a hair. What is that? Hold on a second. Come on out of here. Whatever you are. That's a hair. I gotta pull it out. This is embarrassing. Oh, I got it. No, I didn't. Come on, camera, focus. Come on. Okay, thank you. It's still there. I got the wrong nostril. That's why. Okay. All right. Come on. Okay, I got it. Whew. Good thing I brought my towel. Wow. Good afternoon, everybody. You see me. And you know what? People, you can have a hair or some dried up snot or whatever hanging out of your nose, and people will be right in your face talking to you. They won't tell you. They won't even tell you. I bet you that y'all would have gone this whole podcast and not said anything to me if I didn't see that hanging out of my nose. If I didn't see that, you wouldn't have put anything in the comments. Pastor Fryar, you need to wipe your nose. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. Rashida. Hey, how are you? God bless you. Thanks for joining us. Lalisa. Hey, good afternoon. Nice to meet you too. All right. We got some. Michael Walker's back. Brother Walker was with us on Tuesday night, our TNBT at the church, our church podcast, Bible study. He was with us, and I'm here, Doc. Richard Melton. Mama's here. Yeah. Hey, Mama. Hope is biased. Yeah, that makes two of us. Okay, well, I appreciate you, brother. God bless you. Love you. Vinny said, yeah, look, I was having a good time removing that, whatever that was in my nose from out of my nose. Make sure we're good. All right. My mom said, we didn't see it. Well, I could see it. Maybe you're not on it. I have a big screen over here to my right. So I can see what you see on a big scale. So I make sure everything is, the way it's supposed to be, or at least looking the way it's supposed to be. So before I get into part 2 of my prison experience, I want to shout out again to Alicio Way. We're trying to get some more overlays from Alicio for the church and all. But I thank God for him and his skills for these overlays. Thank you, Lou Rogers, Vision Audio Visual, works for us and with us at the church, and he's our videographer. And again, we want to thank Ecamm, virtual software made for Mac that carries your message across the world. That's how we're able to broadcast. We're broadcasting through Ecamm. Sylvester Webb, Elder Webb. Good morning, Pastor. Is it morning still? It's afternoon. It's maybe it's morning for you, but it's afternoon. It's 12 noon. Officially, it's 12 noon. It's an afternoon. We want to finish up. Hopefully, I won't take the whole hour. I really would like to address any comments or any questions that you might have about what it is I may have already said with regards to whether it was the trial, whether it was the time in prison thus far, because we covered last week my prison time in the county, but there's a whole another part of that where I was actually not just in Craft, but I was also in a place called Jones Farm, and we'll talk about that as we move into it. But I posted a promo. I believe it was yesterday. It was either yesterday or Wednesday. No, it was Wednesday. And the promo was just some snippets from our show last week. And there were a couple of comments that I just want to address. Nothing bad. But one of the comments was that I'm glad that it's over. Well, I'm glad that it's over too. I'm glad that I'm glad the trial is over. I'm glad the divorce that I went through at the same time is over. I'm glad that the time I spent in prison is over. I'm glad that the time, or the 21 months after I came out of prison, after I was released from prison, that I spent on ISP, Intensive Supervision Program, 21 months I was on that program, where I was ordered to have 2 jobs. And during that time, they took from those 2 jobs 20% of my pay after taxes from the first job, and they took 100% of the money that I made from the second job. They did that for 21 months after I was out of prison. I'm glad all of that's over, but unfortunately, with the system, it's not over. Every month, I'm still paying fines. I'm still affected. And again, please let me say this, and I want you to understand this. It's the hand that I'm playing with right now. So that's what I have to deal with. And I'm dealing with it with my head up. I'm not complaining. I'm not whining. Again, I'm giving you the facts. That was in my promo. I'm giving you the facts. And that's why I would like for you to interact. I would like for you to comment on anything that you may have a question about or you're wondering about. But it's not over, because I'm still being, and it's not just me, but anybody who's been in the system and is still in the system, because once you get in, you're always in. It's still affecting me. It hinders my ability to get the job or jobs that I've tried to get in the past. Yes, I've been able to acquire jobs. I've been able to hold them down, but things have changed. So it kept me. Had to make this move back when I had to take down the studio and put it back up, which was something I really didn't want to do, but I did. But I was trying to purchase a place for my wife and I to live. Couldn't do it because of my incarceration. And there are other things as well. So it's almost as if when you're incarcerated, you do hard time because you are locked up. You are behind bars. You are in a prison, or you are in a jail, or you are in a penitentiary. But then when you're released from that prison and you still carry that felony on your back, which I do, I'm a felon. As far as the system is concerned, I am a felon. If I was to turn the camera on behind me, you see the word felon written across my back. So I'm a felon. And as far as the system is concerned, when you're a felon, after you do your hard time, for the rest of your life, you do what they say on the inside is soft time. Yeah, you do soft time. So yeah, I'm still doing soft time. But, that's my thorn. Have I asked God to remove it? Yes, I did. It's not the same kind of thorn that Paul had and that Paul had to deal with. But God says no. When God says no, God comes behind that and says that my grace is sufficient. So whatever is hindering me, whatever is bothering me, whatever is a constant nuisance to me, God's grace will take care of that. God's grace works over and above that and fills in the gaps. And where I'm weak, his grace is strong. Where I'm lacking, his grace makes up the difference. So with that being said, let me start off. Let me see if I can remember where we were last week. I think, just to recap real quick, I talked about being taken downstairs in the court, or from the court to the jail in the county, and that whole experience there for 4 days. Then from the county, after 4 days, being shackled, put in the van and taken over to CRAF, CRAF, Central Relocation Assignment Facility. Walked into my tier, and I think I finished up last week with my experience in how the fellas on the tier came and brought me gifts, and how they explained to me that, we're all guilty, but we all are going through a bad situation right now. So we're bringing you these items that you need to help you, or at least to soften some of the blow. It's somebody said it like this, not in prison, but I've heard it said like this. It's why? Oh no, it was Mr. Miyagi Mr. Miyagi on Karate Kid. He said, "Let's get something to eat." Danielson was mad about something that happened, and Mr. Miyagi said, "Come on, let's go get something to eat." And Danielson said, "What? Why would we go eat now? Don't you know what just happened? I'm upset." He said, "Well, why be mad and hungry?" Why be mad and hungry? So again, why go through what you're going through and still have other needs that could be met or can be met to soften the blow a little bit more? So that's where we ended up last week, and I kind of synonymized that experience with the inmates, and then bringing me needs, things that I would need for that experience. I synonymized that with, or paralleled that with, how we as Christians ought to be, particularly in the church. So now I'm in CRAF. Here we go. Now I'm in CRAF. Everybody all right? Yeah, God's grace. That's amazing. God's grace. God's grace. We know God's grace, where the Bible says, see, you're going to get me started moving in a different direction, but we talked about this And we had a phenomenal Bible study this past week. I finished up and asked if there were any questions, and then we talked about our nugget for the night, and then people started asking questions, and we were on the study for it was almost 45 minutes where we were able to explain some of the doctrines of the biblical teachings that God has about salvation, about baptism. It was awesome. It was awesome. I think people gained clarity in some of their lack of understanding in certain areas in terms of doctrinal teachings in the Bible. And we were able to come out of that study better, obviously, than we were in terms of our knowledge of Scripture than we were before we started. So it was awesome. It was awesome. But God's grace does. Where sin abounds, God's grace abounds even more. We know that on the cross, where Jesus died on the cross, and those who put him on the cross, that was sin. They crucified an innocent man. But while sin was abounding, grace, the grace of God, abounded even more. While Jesus was on the cross, he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That's the grace of God abounding more than evil that was abounding, sin that was abounding. And then while Jesus was on the cross, he told that thief, today you're going to be with me in paradise. Where sin abound, grace abound, even more. Robert Wimberly Jr. Is that Sonny? Is that you, Sonny? Cousin Sonny? Robert Wimberly Jr. or is that Robbie? Which one are you? Robbie? Or if it's Robbie, I grew up, we played together almost all the time when I was a kid. Is that Sonny or is that Robbie? Throw it in the comments. Michael Walker says, yes, it was a great Bible study. And Richard Melton says, absolutely. So anyway, I'm going to wait for you. I'll be looking for you, either Robbie or Sonny, cousin Sonny, to throw up in the comments which one it is. So now I'm in craft, and it's like the prisons that you see on TV. It's got bar doors. There's a little bit of an area outside the cells where the bars are, where there's a couple of tables, there's a couple of TVs, and there's a couple of phones in that tier for those who are staying in the tier. Now, that tier that I was in, like I said before, it was different than the other tiers in the prison. That tier that I was in was a tier that they incarcerated high-profile people, former politicians, former corrections officers, former police officers. And myself, those were the kind of personalities that were in that particular tier. And there were 16 cells in that tier. There were two to a cell, bunk bed in the cell. It was probably pretty close to a 6x9, pretty close to a 6x9. I had a cell. I was in the 16th cell all the way down the end by myself. At the front of the tier, there was a big gate, just like old school. They hit those arms, and stuff would make noise and the gate would open, or they would open all the other cells when we were allowed to come out into the tier. So I met everybody, obviously, that was in that tier. I really only have stayed in contact with one guy that was in that tier, and we've stayed in contact through Facebook. I hit him up, he hits me up. Hanif is his name, and he was a good guy. He taught me, showed me what I needed to do, how I needed to move, some of the things that I could do to make, I don't want to say comfortable, to make my stay in prison more bearable. Yeah, a little more tolerable. So I thank God for him. But again, remember when I was in the county, my first day, just not even a couple of hours in, there was an angel, what I believe was an angel. He was an angel who came and spoke to me, asked me questions, and then told me what was going to happen. This is what you need to do, and this is what's going to happen. This is what this guy said to me. Never saw him after that, never heard from him after that. Well, while I was at craft, the angel, he had told me, they're going to take you to craft. And when you're at craft, they're going to bring you before a board. And that board is going to classify you. And when they classify you, because you've had no other priors, your conviction is not something that it's not a weapons charge or violence charge. They're going to classify you. They call it gang minimum, meaning you're eligible for minimum security prison. He said, tell them, they're going to give you a few choices. Tell them that you want to go to Jones Farm. They'll send you to Jones Farm. When you get to Jones Farm, I can't remember the name of the building it was. There were two buildings where the inmates were housed. Tell them you want to go to this building. I remember the building back then, but I can't remember it now. Some things I guess we just intentionally block out. But out of the two buildings, I found out when I got there, it was the newer of the two buildings. I think one was called the barracks and the other one was called the annex. Yes, it was called the annex. One was called the barracks. One was called the annex. Thank you, Holy Ghost. Tell them you want to be in the annex and they'll put you in the annex. I'm like, really? So again, I'm in craft. Maybe 10 days go by and I get called down before the council, before this board. And they bring me down and I sit before, I think it may have been about 7 people sitting behind, set up tables with chairs behind them in the same area that they had the visiting area in craft. So I sit before the board and they go through this and they go through that and they're just talking about me. And so they asked, this is what we classify you as. We can put you here. You can stay here in craft. We can put you here or we can put you there. And I said, I want to go to Jones Farm. That's the place that the angel told me to go. I want to go to Jones Farm. Okay. They send me back to my cell and they said, we'll get back to you. So I guess it took them like 3 or 4 days, maybe a week before I heard anything back. Now, in the meantime, when I'm back on the tier, now, mind you, I guess I'm a likable person. Some of the guys kind of got fond of me, I guess. And they were saying, the guys that I normally interacted with, it was a group of probably out of the 30 guys that were on the tier, probably was like about 10 guys that I really pretty much interacted with on a consistent basis because they were all together, or I should say buddies, or they kind of hung out together. So they were telling me, man, you don't want to go to craft. I mean, you don't want to go to Jones Farm. You don't want to go to Jones Farm. Jones Farm is this. Jones Farm is that. Jones Farm is this. Jones Farm is that. You don't want to go to Jones Farm. You want to stay here. Do your time here. This is easy time. I don't know what easy time is, but they were saying this is easy time. This is easy time. Well, it was compared to some of the other tiers in craft, but to me, it was all hard time. I didn't like the bars. When the bars shut, when they had to count us, we had to get in our cells and they shut those bars, boom, and they just slammed. Oh my goodness. I would not sleep in my bunk because I did not like being in the cell. So oftentimes I would take the chair that I had in my cell and put it next to the bars and sit and lean against the bars until I'd fall asleep. And then I'd go and get in the bunk and lay there until I'd wake up a couple of hours later. But I did not. Plus there were, we get visitors at nighttime. Hey, Robbie. Mom said it was you. I see. What's going on, Robbie? How you doing, cousin? Thanks for joining us today. I'm just telling my story. I've been telling my story. I started a few weeks ago with the podcast. That's not what I started the podcast for. I've been having some great guests, Sterling Sharp, Andre Reed, some great people on the podcast. I've had a guy from MWR, Mario Henry, who came on and did a financial seminar for us. Basically, he did a seminar. I've had Tanya Tinsley, Dr. Tanya Tinsley. She does psychology and spirituality. She mixes it together. She put a book together. I've had some great guests on, but the last few weeks, we just kind of started talking about my story. And I guess I better tell my story because people have been trying to tell my story and they jacking it up. So I'm just giving the facts about my experience right now, part 2, my experience in prison. We talked about the trial. You can go back on the my YouTube page and check them out. They're all labeled: the trial and the conviction and the sentence, and then the prison experience. That was the last one we did. So I'm giving you part 2 today. But thanks for being with us, cousin. God bless you, man. So yeah, be in the cell, and we would get visitors at night. Yeah, mice and roaches. And we would do, or I would do what we could, when they allowed us to clean our cells. I would get bleach, and I'd try to put bleach around the edge, around the borders of my cell, bleach in the front of the, right up in the front where the bars were, up underneath the bars, to try to keep the mice out. But it didn't work. You'd wake up and you could see evidence that they were there. So I didn't get a whole lot of sleep when I was at Craft. While everybody else in that particular group was telling me, don't go to Craft. Now, Craft was more open. It didn't have cells, didn't have bars. It was like a barracks. And you had bunks, just like a barracks. And there were lockers next to each bunk. So you and your bunkie had a locker. The both of you shared lockers next to each other. And then next to that were bunks and lockers, and they shared lockers. So it was easy for people to, what they said was, plant things on you or get you in trouble, because they had access to your bunk. They had access to a lot of different areas that you didn't have, or access to your privacy that they didn't have when you were in Craft. So that was the main reason. You're right. Nobody can tell my story better than me. That was the main reason they were telling me not to go to the farm. But there was one guy, I'm not going to say his name, and the reason I'm not going to say his name because I can't remember his name. But he wasn't a guy that I got close to, but he was in that tier. He happened to be a former corrections officer. I do remember that. Something happened. I don't know what happened. Obviously, when he was a corrections officer, something went wrong, and he ended up in prison. But he was something happened while he was in prison. I don't know if he got into a fight or if he fell or what happened while he was in prison, but something happened in prison that his hand got jacked up. So he was going back and forth to the doctors through the prison system, and it was connected to supposedly some of his insurance that had something to do with him being a corrections officer. It was a complicated situation. But anyway, he was at the tier at the time, but prior to that, at some point, he was on the farm. He was the only one telling me, and I'm telling you about him because I'm going to bring him up later. He was the only one telling me, he's like, look, you want to go to the farm. And I had already made up my mind. I had already heard from the angel. That's what he said. Everybody else was saying something different anyway. I was going anyway, but he was the one that said, you want to go to the farm. It's going to be all right. The farm is better than here. You're going to do fine. So after spending 45 days at Craft, I get notified, you going to the farm. You going to the farm. Now, this is a new move. Now, I've accumulated a little bit of stuff. Like I told you last week, I had accumulated these plastic bins that I was washing my clothes in. I had accumulated some. I had learned how to purchase items from the canteen. Matter of fact, while I was in Craft, I had a job, and what my job existed. I went 4 hours a day. I would go downstairs. The CO that ran that job would come get. There was 3 of us that were working in the intake area. Really wasn't the intake area, but we put together the mesh bags. Remember I told you when I first got to Craft, they gave us a mesh bag. They showered us, and then they gave us a mesh bag with socks and underwear and undershirts and those kinds of things that we need. Actually, there was a coat in there too. They gave us those kinds of things in that mesh bag. While my job was downstairs in the lower level of the prison, and I help to put those bags together on a daily basis. Now, mind you, we probably had at Kraft, there were at least, we averaged probably 60 to 70 bags a day. 60 to 70 bags a day. That means 60 to 70 people were being incarcerated every day at Kraft. Every day. There were 60 to 70 people coming into prison that had been arrested, that had been convicted, that were coming in and were state property. 60 to 70 every day, which is absolutely amazing. It's sad. It's sad because these were people who had been arrested, who had been convicted, who had been sentenced somewhere in the state of New Jersey, in one of the counties in the state of New Jersey, and were being brought to Kraft, the Central Relocation and Assignment Facility, to be classified and sent to a prison or another prison. Some of them stayed at Kraft, but be sent to another prison somewhere else in the state of New Jersey. 60 to 70 every day. Yeah. So I had accumulated some stuff. I listen, since I worked down, it was favor. I worked down with the clothing in the clothing area. I got myself a pair of boots, and this was all okay by the CO that worked there. God granted me favor. I had extra shirts, extra pants, extra socks, extra everything that I needed. And we also got an opportunity to eat what the COs ate while we were down there working. He blessed us like that. He gave us favor like that. He didn't send us back upstairs and we had to eat what the inmates ate on a daily basis, at least while we were working. He allowed us to eat what the COs ate, and he would have someone bring it from the kitchen into the area we were working. And when we finished working, we'd sit down and we'd eat. Then after we ate, then he'd send us back to the tier or walk us back to the tier. Sometimes it got to the point where he would just send us back to the tier and not walk us back because he, just had favor. He trusted us to walk back, and we couldn't get out of there anyway, so there was nowhere to go. So 45 days later, I get notification I'm going to Kraft. So I got all my stuff, and now, watch this. Jones Farm. Anytime you left Kraft, you had to be strip searched. They strip search you. And strip searching is, taking all your clothes off. You got to bend over, cough, all that stuff. Just nasty. Anytime you left Kraft, whether you were going to court, and I was going through a divorce while I was in prison. So I had to go to court several times. And one of those times was while I was at Kraft. So they strip search you. They shackle you back up, hands to your waist, from your waist to your ankles, put you back in the van. They take you, actually, anytime you have to go to court, they take you to Bordentown. And you sit in the van while they play musical prisoners with the inmates until they figure out which van you're going to go in to go to that particular courthouse. So we would go, the times that I had to go to court, they would take you to Bordentown from Kraft, and you sit in that van probably a couple of hours while the COs decided what they were going to do. And then they put you in the van that was going to the courthouse you needed to go to and take you there. And then you would sit shackled in a waiting room in another cell, holding cell, until it was time for you to go into the courtroom. And they take you in the courtroom, whatever your business was, and then they bring you back out. Most times you would have to sit, for me, it was in the county, back in the county where I first spent my first 4 days, because that's the county I lived in. So that's where the divorce had been filed. So I would have to go back out of the courtroom and go back downstairs and wait again in a holding cell. They put you back in the van and then take you back to Bordentown, and then you have to wait until the last shift. So you sitting in a waiting room, holding room, with a whole bunch of other people who had been to court that day, and you're waiting for the COs from your prison to come back and get you. It is, yeah, it was, I mean, you were able to get out of the prison, but it was not a good experience. That whole, how they have it set up and you go to court, it's really just, I don't know, it is what it is, or it was what it was. It probably still is. So with that being said, I said that to say this. When I came downstairs with my stuff to go to the farm, Jones Farm, the CO is waiting, and it was me and one other cat from the prison that night, from Kraft that night, that were going to Jones Farm. He didn't shackle us. He didn't strip us. None of that. We took our bags and got in the van and went to Jones Farm. And I'm like, wait a minute. You're not getting ready to strip us. You're not getting ready. No, that's not what we do at the farm, which was liberating, which was a breath of fresh air, because Kraft was a place where, some of everybody came there, whether it was a cat like me who was I'm not qualified, but they put me in the qualification of they called it gang minimum. So I was eligible for a minimum security prison. And then they had guys who were murderers in there. They just had them on a different side of the prison. So there was some of everything. They had pedophiles in there. They had some of everything in the prison. That's why it was called CRAFT, Central Relocation and Assignment Facility, because they bring you there and then they classify you and send you where you were supposed to be or where you're going to spend your time. So I go to CRAFT. I go to Jones Farm. I keep calling it CRAFT. I go to Jones Farm. And again, the angel told me the annex. Before I left, they told me, the guys in the tier told me there was a fella by the name of Rocky. It was Rock. Rock's there. Look for Rock. Since you're going, look for Rock. Okay. I get to CRAFT. They have, or I should say, I keep saying CRAFT. CRAFT was a nightmare. That's why I keep saying CRAFT. I get to Jones Farm, and we get out of the van. I got all my stuff. The other guy has his stuff. He actually had to help me carry mine because I had a bunch of stuff. And we go into the intake area, and there's a guy there who is one of the inmates who works to help do the intake portion of new guys coming in like myself. He mentioned Rock. He said, we're going to put you, since you're from, I think it was the 17th tier, since you're from the 17th tier, we're going to put you with Rock. Rock's top bunk is open. He was at the tier before. We're going to put you on top of Rock. Y'all missed it. So my first night in the prison, Jones Farm, I'm on the Rock. Somebody ought to say amen. I saw this kind of immediately, God moving. There's more to it than that. So my first night, walk in, it's bright. It was lights everywhere, just bright. You walk in, the CO's desk is to the right. There's what they called a pod that had a wall in the middle, but you can walk around the back of it, one side to the other, and there were probably 20 bunks on one side of the A-pod, 20 bunks on the other side of the A-pod. A-pod was to the left immediately. You walk past A-pod, and there was the bathroom for A-pod was right after that. Then there was another bathroom connected to that bathroom, but that was the bathroom for B-pod, which when you kept walking, B-pod was there. Then across the day space, and the day space was an area that had multiple tables, and open area is where the barber worked. There was a barber that came in that worked. It was just a big open area with tables where guys could play cards or play chess. Then on the other side of that was C-pod and then D-pod. So C-pod and B-pod were across from one another, and A-pod and D-pod were across from one another. And in that whole housing unit, in that whole annex at Jones Farm, it was probably well over 400 guys in there, 400 inmates in there, between D-pod and the CO's desk were the phones. So everything was open, but it was real bright. I mean, the lights were bright. They must have had LED lights in there. It was a big difference from Kraft. Kraft was dark. Kraft was dingy. Kraft was old. It was depressing. I mean, not that Jones Farm was not depressing. It was depressing because it was still a prison, but it was bright. It was bright in there, which is something that I noticed right away. So they bring me in. They put me in APOD. And apparently I was supposed to have come there, or they thought I was supposed to be at the farm or come to the farm prior to me actually getting there, because they were reserving a bunk for me right there in the front. But because I didn't come when they thought I was coming, they put me with rock. So now I'm on top of the rock. Wow. You may have heard me say this before. And I hit rock bottom. I had. But when you hit rock bottom, Jesus is the rock at the bottom. Stand on the rock. I know rock wasn't Jesus, but it was synonymous. It was a symbol. It was a sign that God, y'all don't think so? Come on. You don't think so? I think a lot of us miss, particularly when we're going through the difficulties or the difficult times in our lives, a lot of us miss the care of God, the presence of God in our lives when we're in those situations. The Bible says God is a very present help in the time of trouble. And I think we miss God sometimes, and we lose our focus, or we lose in that situation because we don't see God moving in it. I immediately, when they said, I got up on the bunk, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm on top of the rock. Everything's going to be all right. Well, okay, if you don't believe that, or if you don't get it with that, then get this. So when I got there, had all my stuff, right? Yeah, amen. Thank you, Angel. Amen. Amen. Angel gets it. Hope said, I get it. Angel said, wow. Yes, wow. You can't make this stuff up, y'all. You can't make it up. And I'm not making it up. I'm giving you the facts. The facts. So watch this. So I get there, and they put me on top of the rock. So I'm on a bunk bed on the top, in the second portion of the APOD, and I'm about 3 or 4 bunks back, and I'm on the top bunk with Rock. So now I'm starting to he's showing me, Rock's talking to me, hey, how you doing? Listen, I was over there where you were. Boom, I know so-and-so. I know so-and-so. Remember so-and-so? Yeah. He's still there? Yeah, he's still there. So we're talking. And then so a few guys come around, and they introduce themselves to me. Apparently, everybody knew I was coming. Everybody knew I was coming. I guess word gets around. COs, they talk, and all kinds of stuff happens. Yeah. So he's introducing me to a few guys, and he says, listen, this is your locker. You put your stuff in here. And he's showing me how to put it, what to do and whatnot. He said, but you're going to want to get a lock, and you can get a lock this way. You can get a lock that way. I was going to have to purchase a lock. Now, mind you, I had a job at Kraft, and we made money with that job. But understand that money we made was probably like, I want to say it was $4 a day. It may have been $4 a day. I had a job when I was at Jones Farm, and I think it was one of the more favorable jobs. It was one of the better jobs, and I believe it was $5 a day. But the monies that we made, it would go on our books. But in order to, be somewhat, or at least soothe some of the pain, we would spend that. We'd give that money back to the state to get things from the canteen, whether it was, whether you like Snickers bars, if you like, you had to buy extra socks, if you had to, buy T-shirts, you had to spend that money. If you had a job, you spent that money and you gave it back to us. So it was a vicious cycle. So you gave it right back. It was cheap labor, almost like slave labor. It was cheap labor. They paid us a few dollars, and we gave it right back to them to be able to have some little amenities inside the prison, pretzels or potato chips or, peanut butter, things like that we could buy in the canteen. So anyway, so I had some of that stuff, and Rock saying, you're going to need to get a lock. So I was going to have to wait until the next time because you could only purchase things once a month from the canteen. So I was going to have to wait until the next month to be able to purchase a lock. Until that time, whatever I had, although people didn't really mess with other people's stuff, but my stuff was going to be vulnerable. I wouldn't have a lock to protect the things that I had. So a guy comes over. Guess what his name was? His name was King. King comes over and King gives me a lock. Favor. Y'all missed that too. I'm on the rock. That's where I'm on. I'm on top of the rock. I'm sleeping on the rock, over top of the rock. Yeah, the rock is under me, holding me up. My possessions are not protected. My possessions are vulnerable. And since my possessions are vulnerable, that makes me vulnerable. So what happens? The king comes and provides security. Y'all, I'm about to, whew. A guy named King came over and gave, y'all, you can't make this up. A guy named King came over and gave me a lock so that I could secure my possessions. Y'all, that's what a king does for his kingdom. The king provides security for his subjects. Not that I was his subject. Obviously, the king is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, but it's symbolic. It's symbolic. You can't make this up. You can't make this up. Right then, right there. So then, watch this. I'm moving forward, then I'm going to come back. So then King left after about a month, maybe a month and a half. After I was there about a month and a half, King was actually on the bunk. He was on the bunk that they had wanted, or they were going to put me on. But because I took longer than they thought to get to Jones Farm, they gave the bunk to King. I didn't know that until they said that. But then when King left, guess where I went? I went to the front bunk where they were originally going to put me. There was no bunkie at the time. The next day, another cat comes in. They put him on my top bunk. Guess what his name was? King. So now the king is over me. The rock was under me. The king protected me and provided for me. And now the king is over me. Y'all, you can't make this up. Okay, let me give you one better. Y'all still not getting this. Modern day parable. That's a modern day parable. I didn't have to use, well, you use biblical principles to make it applicable. But that was a modern day happening. That is a modern day parable. Yes. Absolutely God's favor. You can't see it any other way. Oh my gosh, I'm almost an hour. My first night, watch this. My first night, I get tickled every time I think about this. And I'm not going to say any names. I can't. I mean, I gave you King and Rock and all that, but I didn't give you their whole names. And I still stay in touch with Rock, by the way. Rock and I still stay in touch because Rock and I don't want to have to do a part 3 of this. Wow. I'm going to have to come back to it because next week I have a guest on the show. So y'all are just going to have to, keep watching until I can get through all of this. But it's a lot. I need to put it in a book. People keep telling me that, but God didn't say that yet. So I'm not putting it in a book yet. Maybe I'm writing the book as I'm telling it. And then whoever's going to write the book, because I'm not writing the book, I'll get a ghostwriter. Whoever's going to write the book can watch these videos and write the book. Amen. So my first night, watch this. Angel says, nothing but God. Yes. Hope says, you were resting under the king. I don't know if I was resting. I was in prison. Okay. We can say that though. Yes, I got my rest under the king because I did have to, I didn't get much sleep, but I did have to sleep. So yeah, I got my rest under the king. And Michael Walker says 2 kings. Yes. 2 kings. Yep. So my first day at Jones Farm, and I kept calling it Craft before, but forgive me. My first night at Jones Farm, first night, everything settles down. It's time for count. It's time for them to do. There were 4 shifts a day for the 4 shift changes a day for the COs. So now we're in. It's time for the last shift, the overnight shift, to come in, and when they come in and shift, when the shifts change, there's a count. They have to do a count because they have to make sure who, there were those of us who went out for jobs during the day and did our jobs during the day and came back. So they had to make sure that the numbers were the same when the shift changes of who's there and who's not there. Now, obviously at nighttime, we're all there. We're all there at nighttime. So they still have to do a count. All right. Yes, he did. Gave me what I need to protect my stuff. So Rock tells me this. This is what Rock says. He said, listen, when they come to do the night count, and I'm not going to tell you what the CO's name was, but he said, don't mess with him. Make sure you're on the bunk. And when they do count, when it's time for count, you have to be on your bunk. Be on your bunk and shut up. Don't say anything. Don't be looking. You have to be on everybody has to be on their bunk and be quiet when it's time for count. Treat us like little kids. Don't make any noise. Don't move. Stay on your bunk. So when they come through, they count heads. All right. And I guess it makes it easier for them. But if there's an empty bunk and it's supposed to be someone in that bunk, now there's an issue. But at least, they can account for who's missing or who's there, who's not missing. So he said, I'll say T. So Officer T, when he comes through here, there's a guy named Officer T. When he comes through here at nighttime, he's on the night shift. Listen, you better be on the bunk. You better be quiet. Don't even look at him. I said, okay. Thank you very much for my instructions, Rock. You are the man. So now it's time for the night shift to come in. It's time for the count. We're on our bunks. I'm laying on my bunk. I'm on the top bunk. And the corrections officer T, for the 7 months that I was there at Kraft, you could smell him coming. He had, I don't know what kind of cologne he wore or what kind of oil he had on, but you could smell him before he got to you. Not that it was an awful smell, but he wore a lot of it. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. So he comes around. I never looked at him. He went past the back of my head. My head was towards the aisle, and I'm looking towards my feet, towards the wall. So he walks by, and he does all the count, and then he finishes the count. He goes up to the CO's desk, and then it's lights out. Boom, lights go out. All right. So now I'm sitting there, and some of us have little TVs. The guys had little TVs. I was able to acquire a little TV when I got there, and Rock made sure he took care of that for me. So I had my little TV. I was watching my little TV with my little headphones in. And yes. Sadiq, you're not supposed to know. I wasn't going to say his name. Dick, oh my gosh, good to see you, man. Y'all, this is Sadiq. Sadiq was with me at Jones Farm, bruh. And Sadiq and I worked out together, and I started Sadiq running, long distance running. We started running for 30 minutes. We'd run for 15 minutes around the yard one way, and then with 15 minutes up, we turn around and run the other way. Deke's still running. Deke is running in marathons now, and he says it's my fault. Everyone, please, Hope said, everyone, please like us by clicking the thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. But Deke, it's good to see you. Yeah, I was trying not to say his name. I'm trying not to get anybody in trouble. And there's a reason I didn't want to say his name. But yes, it was Big Thomas. Good God almighty. So yeah, Rock said, don't mess with Thomas. So Thomas goes through, he checks everything. He does his count. Now he's at the CO's desk, and Deke can verify all of this. Okay, that's how you know I got a witness. I got a live witness. I got an in-house witness who was there, who knows I'm telling the facts. I'm giving it to him straight. So lights go out, and I turn my head to the right because that's where the CO's desk was, and I look to see what this Thomas cat looks like. I can't really see him though because the lights are out, and he would have this light up there where the CO's desk was for him to be able to see or read or whatever it is he was going to do for the evening. With I think there was another CO there too as well. And I'm looking, I looked again, and I'm not moving. I'm just moving my head. I'm trying not to move because I don't want to draw attention to myself. And I know he knows I just got there because everybody else knew I just got there. So I know he knows I just got there. So I'm like, this cat looks familiar. Oh, he looks familiar to me. He does. So I lay back down. About 15 minutes go by. I hear Fryar. I'm like, oh. He said, Fryar. Now he's still sitting. Normally they will come if they want to talk to you. They'll come in your pod and say something to you. But he's still sitting at the CO's desk. And so he's got to say it loud enough so everybody in the pod hears it. She said, this is a mini series. It is a mini series. You should see the thumbnails that I put on my YouTube page. This is episode 2 of part 5. Yes, check it out. This is episode 2 of part 5. So I'm like, this cat looks, I hear Fryar. I didn't pay, I just stay still. Fryar. I turn my head and I see him say, come here. I'm like, oh, shoot. I'm not trying. Listen, I'm trying to, everybody already knows who I am. I'm trying to be invisible up in here. I ain't trying to, and I'm not trying, no. So I jump down off the bunk. I start walking towards him. And the closer I get to him, I'm like, I know you. I know you. What are you doing here? He was the father of one of the kids that I coached, who was a good friend of our family, good friend to my son, one of the kids I've always stayed in contact with, still in contact with today. That was his father. I knew this man. I met him and talked to him multiple times. He said to me, I said, what are you doing? He said, this is my night gig, man. Yeah, I know you didn't know. I didn't tell you it was a night gig, but I got a night gig. This is my night gig. I've been doing this for a while. He said, listen, don't let them know that you know me, because if you let them know that you know me, then they'll move you. No problem. No problem. So at nighttime, when the night shift came in, and he was there most of the time, he may have missed in the 6.5, 7 months that I was at Jones Farm, he probably missed maybe a week out of that, if that, on vacation. So he was there every night. And I had favor. I could. One of the things I was able to do, I was able to make a cocoon, meaning I would take sheets. I put string on my bunk, on the back and on the sides. And I take a sheet and drape it over the front, the sides, and the back, and close myself in at nighttime because it was cold in there. And I close myself in. I'd take the sheets and nobody else was allowed to do that except for me, because Thomas was looking out for me. I think some other guys did, but they had to take it down. But Thomas didn't mess with me with mine. That's because, Sadiq, you may not have known that. I think maybe you didn't know that I knew him, but that's why he never gave me a hard time, because I knew him for years. And at nighttime, he allowed me to do that, to take cause they wouldn't let people do it because, you didn't know what was going on in there. You didn't know, wake up in the morning, they'd be gone. And, that was on them. But no, he allowed me to, create a little bit of a cocoon. And then that first night, check this out. That first night when I was there, after I found out it was him. We talked for a minute. I got back on my bunk because I didn't want anybody thinking that, I was being treated special or anything like that. Got back on my bunk, went to sleep, woke up in the middle of the night, and I had a big tray of food at the foot of my bunk that he had one of the guys bring over there. So I divided it actually with the guy who actually came with me to Jones Farm from Kraft that was in the van with me. I found him because they put him on the other side of the A-pod. I took some of that food to him because I know he didn't have, much. I had a bunch of clothes and stuff that I had accumulated from working there and just, the neat freak that I am. I was trying to dress in prison, a different pair of pants every day. That's just the way I am. I couldn't, So I had a bunch of clothes they were the same clothes, but I was wearing clean clothes every day I had clean underwear every day, which not everybody had, and not everybody wore. So I took him some of that food, because that's what you're supposed to do. When God blesses you, you're supposed to turn around and bless somebody else. Even though I was in prison, I was still blessed. God still blessed me. He surely did. There's a lot more meat to my story, but I'm going to end there. And Faith, you're right. It is. This is a mini series. It is. Sadiq, yes, we can write a series based on our experience in Jones Farm. So I think some days good, others not so good. But overall, it wasn't a bad prison. Like Fryar said, it was a camp. That's right. It was a camp. We had jobs during the day. And that was one of the blessings, if I can add this real quick, but and we'll come back to it when we come back to the next part. And I'll announce it before we get back into part 3 of this. But every day, and I don't know if I call Deke, his name is Sadiq, but I asked him when I met him. He was one of the first guys when I got to Jones Farm, when I was sitting there or standing there talking to Rock. I'm sorry, standing there talking to Rock, and Rock was showing me what to do with the locker and all that. Deke came over and actually introduced himself, and he said his name was Sadiq. And I asked him, I said, "Is it okay if I call you Deke?" He said, "Yeah, that's cool." And I've been calling him Deke ever since. I think Deke had his job was inside the prison. He didn't go out like some of us did on a daily basis. Some of you here in New Jersey, when you see guys in orange suits on the side of the road picking up trash, they're from Jones Farm. That was one of the jobs that they offered at Jones Farm. I worked, and this is a whole nother revelation that God was working the whole time. I worked at a military base, at a National Guard base, and we went out every day. And the reason I liked that job, one, it was considered the best job out of the jobs that were offered, and you had to be selected for that job. And obviously, I was selected because I had favor. They gave me favor. God, the favor of God was on me, even though I was in prison. Joseph, even though I was in prison, the favor of God was on me. So we were able to go out. It just made me feel human. We were able to get in the van, go to the job, work all day, eat regular food at the job, not prison food, and then come back. And by the time we got back, the day was pretty much done. So it made the days go by faster. And it made you seem a little normal. And yes, I thought that's what it was, Deke. Deke couldn't, because he was from Trenton, and Jones Farm was right down the street from Kraft, not far from Kraft, but it was in Trenton. So if you were a resident of Trenton and you were at Jones Farm, they wouldn't let you out to work in the area. Why? Because you're from that area, and you might try to connect with someone, or you might try to get away, or you were familiar with what was going on in those areas, so they wouldn't allow you to have a job outside the prison like they did me. I wasn't from Trenton, so I was allowed to have a job outside in the Trenton area. But long story short, and I'll come back with this later on again, that military base, that National Guard base that I was shoveling snow and painting walls and scrubbing the floors in the cafeteria. That's what we did there. Setting up for banquets, mopping and sweep, all that stuff I did at that military base while I was there. Do you know? Oh, excuse me. After I got out of prison, do you know I ended up working there? I ended up getting a job in that same place. That same place. Which was God just setting it up. I couldn't get a job anywhere else, y'all. I ended up getting a job in the same place. I had an office next to the general. Yep. I had an office next to the general. That's a whole nother chapter. And that's just nothing but God. But this is episode, I believe it's episode 5, part 2 of my prison experience. Richard, what'd you say? Irving, God has been blessing you all your life. Yes, he has. And it's very apparent to those of us who have known you all your life. Yes. And you know what? You're right, Richard. Somebody told me this a while ago, because I was jacked up. I really allowed what people was saying, what people were doing, how people were treating me. I really allowed it to mess me up. And for a while, I really began to think bad about myself. Now, this is just one incident, whether I did it or didn't do it, it's still just one incident in my life that, I ended up in prison. But I mean, it was absolute. What amazing testimony. Thank you. Vanetta? It's Vanetta? Hey, good to meet you. There's more to it than this. We got more to go. But I really started, just seeing myself in a bad way. I had to go. I'm going to show you this here in my studio. I'm going to show you this. These cameras, I still have to tweak these cameras. They're not quite moving. This one is moving to my voice. So when I talk, it's matching with what you see. But these other cameras aren't doing that yet. I got to tweak them a little bit. But I want to show you some stuff. I had to go to storage. I went to the storage bin that I had and went and retrieved, because lost most of it. Most of it was either not stolen, but sold or given away or whatever. But I had to go get some of the trophies and the awards that I had received over the years to remind myself that I'm not a bad dude. I'm not a bad dude. I got, I don't know if you can see those over here. That's what is that? That's a Bart Star Award for, it's like a humanitarian award. That award right there. And there's a Nebraska All-American award in behind it. And then over here on this other side, again, there's Eagles, and I have another one up there. You can't see it, but there's an Eagles MVP. That Eagle right there, so Eagles MVP, and there's another MVP trophy back there, and there's a New England Patriots helmet from being MVP at New England. So that's Johan back there, by the way. And Johan's my friend. He's been with me for a while, and he really is easy to get along with because Johan doesn't really say much. Johan doesn't give me a hard time. I had to go back and remind myself that I'm not what people are saying I am. Good gosh, these people can be really cruel, and I never thought people could get to me. I mean, get to me like that, and they didn't know it. I didn't show it. I didn't say it to anybody. It was just something that I kept on the inside. But it did for a minute. I almost, curled up within myself and just really would not deal with people. But that's not who I am. That's not who I am. That's not how I operate. And that's a trick of the enemy to try to get us off by ourselves and isolated, away from our support system. I have a group of people at TNJ, and even this group of people here right now who have logged in and are participating today or commenting today, a group of people at TNJ. And it's just a handful of people who have stood by me, who have supported me, who love me, who genuinely care about me. And you know how I know that? I know that because when things were at their worst for me and for the church, they didn't go anywhere. They didn't go anywhere. They didn't waver. Did they have questions? Of course they had questions. Who wouldn't? But they stayed. They stayed, and they honored God. They honored themselves, and they honored me. And y'all, that's enough. That's enough for me right there. If I don't have any other folk in my life or on my side, them folk at TNJ, that's enough. Yeah. Again, like I said last week, I'd rather have a few people thoroughly immersed in the true Spirit of God than thousands with lukewarm enthusiasm. We can get a whole lot more done with a few. Amen. So we're going to shut this down today. I've been talking. I don't know how I can do this. This is becoming too easy. Talking for like an hour without shutting up. So I want to thank everybody. Mike Walker, Lalisa, are you still there? Rashida, Vinny, you still there, Vinny? Hope, Mama, Sylvester Webb, yes, Brother Walker, Robbie, I don't know if you're still on, but thanks for joining us today. Angel, yes, thanks for being with us today. Who else? Faith, I think that's everybody. Deke, bless you, man. You still running? Don't blame that on me. You just found something you like to do. That running is good. I started doing cross training, man. I don't know if I can get you to do that, but I'm doing cross training now. But man, I'm surely, it really does my heart well. Every time I hear from you, it does my well. Brings back good memories. All right. Vanetta, I believe that's how you say it. Thanks for joining us today. Y'all, that's it. There are those who will never forget what you have meant to us. Yeah. Well, I think you sound like I'm dead. You said what I meant to y'all. I appreciate you, Elder Webb. Have a good day. Yes, I will call you, Vinny. Peace and blessings. Who was that? Grahamkin. Who is that? Grahamkin. Am I saying that right? Yeah, Deke. You're in the cross training, huh? Look at my either with Facebook or on my Instagram page. You'll see some of my workouts. I posted them the last couple of months. Go back and check it out. See if you can hang. I know you can, man. You're strong man, strong body and in mind. God bless you, bro. God bless you. All right, y'all. I'm out of here. We're gonna come back next week, same time. Oh, okay. Mickey Graham's brother. Grew up with Mickey. Yes. Good to see you, bro. God bless you. Thanks for being with us. Shout out to Alicia Way. Shout out to Vision Audio Video. Lou Rogers. Shout out. Good story. Shout out to Ecamm. Virtual software made for Mac. Carries your message across the world. That's how we're doing this today. Next week, check this out. Next week, we have a guest. Our guest next week will be none other than Doug Williams. Yes, Doug Williams, Super Bowl champion quarterback from the Washington Redskins. Yes, Doug Williams will be our guest next week. We will actually be doing our show from Las Vegas. Yeah, we won't be in the studio next week. We're actually going to take our mobile unit and we're going to do our show from Las Vegas. We're going to be out in Las Vegas with the Eagles-Raiders game. It's going to be interesting. There's a whole bunch of turmoil going on out there in Las Vegas because of John Gruden. So we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to be out there next week with the Green Legion, doing the pregame show with the Green Legion. But that means I'm going to have to be out there for on Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time. So I will be broadcasting, doing the show from Vegas from our mobile unit. Hopefully everything works out all right. But until then, y'all, we'll see you next week. Same time, same place, same purpose here at the Fryar Place, where the conversations are fire.